Jim, this next one was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Joe Ed Holt. I'm reading hardcore history about the history of ECW. Scott Levy claims that he pitched the Raven character first to Jim for Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and that Jim led him along without ever telling him no. Does Jim remember this? Would he have ever considered bringing in the Raven character? And on a similar line, were there any ECW wrestlers you would have booked?
Okay, first, does Jim remember this? I will say a word that I couldn't say a minute ago. No. I don't remember. Raven, at the time that I first went to the WWF, was Scotty Polo, right? He was a
Johnny
manager. Johnny Polo. I'm sorry. It was Scotty Flamingo and then Johnny Polo. And Scotty Flamingo had been his wrestling gimmick in Memphis and a few other places, and he had a flamboyant outfit and a hat and kind of a male stripper kind of thing. And then he had been made Johnny Polo in the WWF because they made him a manager. And golly, he appeared to be a rich kid manager carrying a polo mallet. I don't know where they could have gotten that from. But when I got there, you know, I mean, we talked on numerous occasions, and Scotty is the kind of guy that will go into detail about ideas he has or whatever. But I don't remember, unless, because here's the thing, I never got the fucking Raven thing anyway. And Raven was perfect for ECW because it was the 90s grunge. You can probably call tons more references to 90s pop culture than I can, but it was 90s grunge, and all the young people were miserable and hated the world and themselves and everybody in it and that whole fucking thing. And that was, and for ECW, that was perfect. I've said a million times, it's not about Scotty's work, but just the whole Raven gimmick thing. Not only could we not have done much of that shit that they did on television in Tennessee, or we'd have got kicked off the air. What he was having his, you know, lesbian fucking cohorts involved and three-ways and all kinds of shit, whatever the fuck was going on. But also nobody would have understood it because my audience wasn't a bunch of young, miserable people dressed in black listening to grunge. It was fucking hillbillies and rednecks and regular people in East Tennessee. So I'm not saying he never pitched it to me. He may have, because Scotty can get on a roll, and sometimes, you know, you don't want to be particularly rude, but just, yeah, well, you got something there. But I never intended to lead him on that he was going to get fucking work in Knoxville. He quit the WWF because he wanted to go back to wrestling instead of being a manager. And that took balls, and you know, kudos to him for that. But
he debuted as Raven at the beginning of 95, and you saw him in November at the Dennis Carluzzo NWA tournament before he was Raven. So it would have been around that period of time.
Well, no, I was seeing him in the WWF before that.
But after he left, I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, especially if he was pitching something at one of Dennis's shows when I'm running around trying to do other shows, I mean, yeah, Scott, that'd be great, whatever. You know, I mean, I was trying to be polite, maybe. It's left my mind. I don't know. But there was never, and again, I'm not knocking him, but it didn't fit what we were doing in Smoky Mountain. And, you know, there was never, and also, I'm going to ask the guy to move from Philadelphia to Knoxville. He could probably have made more money working Northeast independents and staying home, just same way as the guys that lived in Nashville didn't want to get booked in Philadelphia because that's fucking 600 miles or 700 miles or whatever it is, and the money wasn't there at that point in anybody's company. So no, this was not a thing that was ever going to happen.
If Scott Levy, Raven, sat there and pitched the Raven concept to you, do you think about the idea, even though at that time you're running Smoky Mountain, WWE, or WWF is a whole separate thing, but there is a crossover audience who do see some do see both. But whether it's him or someone else, is it hard for you to sit there and hear a pitch from someone who's talking about reinventing themselves when it worked out for him well, but he was on TV, like you said, he was Johnny Polo, a manager, a feckless manager for a while.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's, the sullen grunge rocker. It worked. On paper, it shouldn't have. Is it hard to sit there and hear pitches from guys who have had one gimmick and want to just reinvent themselves?
Well, yes and no. If it's a guy you want to use and you're interested in, and you've got an idea or are willing to listen to his ideas because you know there's something there, then yes, you want to get into it and go back and forth. And what can we do? And how can we, fix this up? How have you been portrayed before? How can we put a Band-Aid on that? If some guy just at random is saying, I got this great idea for a gimmick, and if you're a friend of his and you're just sitting bullshitting, you're going to listen to it and maybe kick some stuff in. But if he's pitching you and you're a booker and you're like, I ain't got a spot, don't see it right now, financially probably ain't going to work, then it's going in one ear and out the other. It just depends on what the situation is. With Tracy Smothers, I wanted to be involved, and it was simple. Just, they had made him a young pistol from Wyoming in WCW, and all we had to do was just try to figure out a way to babyface him and let him tell people, hey, I didn't want to be involved in all this. I'm a good old boy from Springfield, Tennessee. Y'all know me. And I was under contract and had to do what I had to do. But now I'm just going to be me. And that's how we revamped his gimmick, by taking the fucking gimmick away from him and just making him Tracy Smothers, the wild-eyed Southern boy that he'd always been. Other times, you've got to figure out a way to give a guy a new look or whatever. But if it doesn't fit what you're going for, there's plenty of actors. But if you're a Hollywood studio or a producer, you don't want to hire every goddamn actor that exists just because they can act. You want people that look right in the fucking movie.
All right. Well, Jim, you can watch a movie or a TV show.
Or you can try to stumble around and come up with a segue.
Or a website from around the world. If you only knew a reliable and a good source to access an ExpressVPN.
Well, here's the problem, Brian. We've talked about this before. And with these new highfalutin internet service providers, you don't know what's going on. You don't know who they're talking to, dealing with. And also with these hackers. You got these hackers now that know all this computer mumbo jumbo, and they can just pick your computer like they're picking your pocket. But going online, according to this publicity material, going online without ExpressVPN is like leaving your kids with the nearest stranger while using the restroom. Most of the time, it's probably fine. But every once in a while, when you come out of that bathroom, you find that stranger has sold your children to a foreign government or criminals. And, it's the same thing with your internet service provider and these hackers.
It's not the same thing. I don't know what you're talking about, but
it's because
your children will be safe.
No, you know as well as I do. Because, you used to have 6 kids, right? And you're down to 4 because those times you had to piss at the baseball game.
That's not true. We've always had the same amount of kids.
Well, most of the time it's probably fine, but you never really know who you're trusting. You don't want to risk it. That's why you need to be using ExpressVPN. We've also talked about this on the program before. Your internet service providers, you've had it happen to you countless times. A couple of them come to your home one morning to fix some stuff that's going wrong, and when they leave, only one of them gets in the truck and leaves. And you've been wondering to yourself, where is this other fucking guy? Well, come to find out, he's secreted himself in your home, inside the walls, so he can keep track of your browser history and the way that you use your internet. And as well, these hackers, they're just everywhere now. And sometimes they even surface above ground. And that way you can play whack-a-mole with them, but you can't ever actually eliminate them entirely. That's why that ExpressVPN, what they do is they create a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet so that hackers can't steal your data. At one end of that tunnel, they have secreted landmines. So when the hackers that live underground get into that tunnel and try to get into your information, they come to the end of the tunnel, they get blown up.
What? No, what are you talking about?
Well, ExpressVPN, they create a secure encrypted tunnel. Well, they've got to wire it. They've got to, set the explosives, because that way when the hackers that live underground get into that tunnel and try to tunnel all the way through to your information, they'll get blown up. Hackers make serious cash selling personal information on the dark web. Your browser history, they can sell it to criminals. They can sell it to foreign governments. They can sell it to your wife. And imagine then what would happen. ExpressVPN has made it easier than ever to keep your information away from the prying eyes of your significant other. Just fire up the app, click one button, and you're instantly protected. As a matter of fact, they will send a security force to your home to stand watch. Now, don't bother them while they're on duty. They'll be in a brown Ford LTD with Missouri plates, but they'll be sitting outside your house.
There is no security force. No one will be outside of your house. This is the entertainment portion of the spot here. Of course, ExpressVPN is a serious company, and none of this will be taking place.
Well, let me ask you some serious questions. Do you want your wife to know your browser history as well as the foreign governments and the criminals that may be trying to steal your identity?
I don't mind if my wife sees my browser history. I got nothing to hide.
Well, you'd be the only one.
Now, the foreign governments, that I may be worried about.
Well, and your wife will see plenty of foreign governments.
What?
Because they're all going to be trying to sell her your browser history. Every single one of them, from Moldavia.
Moldova! God damn it.
Moldavia and Monrovia, they're all going to be trying to get money out of your wife to sell her your browser history so she can find out all the different things she needs to be mad about. But ExpressVPN, folks, will keep you away from the hackers, keep you away from the criminals, keep you away from the foreign governments, and most importantly, keep you away from your wife. And if you go right now to expressvpn.com/JCE, you'll get protected at the click of a button and a fire up of an app, and you'll get 3 extra months for free. 3 extra months that nobody will be able to put you in prison because you've gone to an illicit website that has now trapped your identity there forever. expressvpn.com/JCE. Get secure right now and get 3 extra months for free. And get that fucking guy out of your walls.
There's no one in your wall, and you don't have too much to worry about, but ExpressVPN is a fine service that you should check out and see if it could do wonders for you.
Do you hear the beating and banging? Now there's somebody in my wall trying to get out.
I didn't hear it, no.
Well, you should be over here. You'd hear it better.
All right, well, ExpressVPN, and you can't hear anything. It's a service that has nothing to do with hearing, but ExpressVPN.
It has nothing to do with hearing. Therefore, you can be deaf and still avail yourself of this fine service.
That's right. ExpressVPN.